Hi everyone, we're back with another episode of How to Get My Job. We sit down with amazing people within the design, products and creative industry and ask them how their careers started, evolved, and what advice they have for those coming after them. Joining us today is Iain Nevill, a freelance creative director who's worked with the likes of Apple, Nike and Google. Hi Iain, how you doing?
Hello. All good.
Good. So you're currently based in Amsterdam?
Exactly. Yep. Based out here, been here for a few years now. But yeah, working remote with companies based here, based back in the States, based in the UK. So yeah, thankfully, it doesn't really matter as much where you're based now.
Your career journey is super impressive. You've worked with some amazing agencies from the likes of Saatchi Saatchi, 72 and Sunny, and more. And what I'd really like to get out of this conversation is a bit more about you, how you made those different steps, how you navigated the industry, so that we can hopefully give some great advice and tips. Let me just jump into it with the first question, which is, how did you get your first job as a copywriter?
I've always wanted to be in advertising, from seeing first ads on TV way back when, mid to early 90s even, and just being like, wow, they're crazy, they're creative. A lot of the times they're more interesting than what was on TV. I really wanted to get into advertising. And at the time I was based in Scotland, in Glasgow. There were no ad schools back then. There was nowhere you could learn advertising. The closest was really art school, I guess. Yeah, I kind of went a different route. I ended up going to business school and I did a marketing degree just because it was kind of close, but really wasn't that close. So I ended up doing a lot of summer placements, totally free, but basically just sending out my sort of like CV or kind of portfolio or just letters of interest to like little local agencies, just being like, can I please come in over summer and just work there? A few said yes. So I spent my summers in agencies just learning. And it just so happened that when I did graduate, a CD that was in one of those agencies had just moved to a new one and reached out and said, I remember you from, those placements. You were really keen. Would you like to come on just as the sort of unpaid junior, just to kind of get the experience? And of course I said, yes, please. So yeah, how did I get my first job? I think it's just getting in there, just getting into the agencies, getting into that space, working with somebody, getting your face known, getting your ideas known. I think that's really it. It's the hustle to just try and get in amongst it, because I can safely say that my degree did nothing for my actual career.
And a lot of us, there's many of us who've done like degrees in X, Y, and Z and are doing something completely different now. And it's so refreshing to hear as well, like that someone who didn't do like a degree in design or art or the arts is now in the creative industry. And like, it's great to hear that you can make that transition, even though you don't go the conventional route.
Yeah.
And in terms of, skills, experience, that leads quite nicely into our next question, which is, what are the most important qualities a copywriter could have?
For a writer, I think one of the most important qualities is just to be able to just put your mind into the sort of head of who you're talking to, into the head of the audience, into the head of the target market, whatever you want to call it. Essentially, as a writer, you're talking to them. You're kind of using your voice as the brand voice to talk to somebody and to try and convince them to do something, or to try and just make them feel a certain way. And yeah, and so I guess it's just putting yourself into their head and being kind of like, what does that person want to hear? If I was, XYZ, this person in this job, in this position, in this time of my life, in this whatever, what would I want to hear from this brand to make me smile, to make me laugh, or to make me just feel heard, or to make me, you know, connect with them. So I think a lot of the times that's what I'm doing, at least, you know, whether it's like working on copy for like a financial institution, you know, you just kind of put your head into what you think, you know, a sort of like a finance, you know, like professional would want to hear. You know, what are their worries? What are their needs? What are their thoughts? What do they care about? Versus like a single parent that's looking for diapers. What do they want to think about? What are their needs? You know, where's their head at? So you're just constantly putting yourself into their shoes and then speaking to them accordingly.
Obviously, you're a freelance creative director now, and you've been, you know, doing this for a long time. How did you make the transition from copywriter to creative director?
Time and experience is one thing, of course. You know, the longer you do something, the more you know the ins and outs, the more you can speak to why something works, why something doesn't, why something's good, why this is wrong, why this is right. But I think as well, like the difference between copywriter, like if you're just talking, you know, purely the definition between like a copywriter versus creative director. Copywriter, you're in amongst it, you're thinking of stuff, you're executing, you're working on craft, you're writing scripts, you're writing the headlines, you're writing the ideas, whatever. True creative director, like that job is very different. At its purest level, people are coming to you, presenting ideas to you, and you're basically the one. You're sifting through it. You're saying what's right, what you like, what you don't, why you don't, steering them towards, you know, the sort of best, most creative output. But you're not the one doing. You know, the worst creative director is the sort of like, okay, let me do it. It's like, that's just not the job. The job is to steer and to motivate. And of course, if they're not getting it, you have to step in. But that's when it gets stressful because, you know, you don't want to step in too soon, but, you know, you obviously need to get to a great place. So yeah, it's that sort of like, it's navigating how to just bring out the best creative, how to steer it, because you know the brief, you know the strategy behind it. You can see the sort of bigger picture, whereas your teams are usually just focused on the most creative expression. So sometimes, you know, it can be amazing, but it's just, you know, it's not right for this brief. So you have to try and shape it to make it right, or tell, say, no, love it, but it's just not the right answer. You know, let's go this way.
I'm going slightly off piste here, but what I want to know is, when you started like interning at different agencies, at what point did you have that moment where you were like, okay, this is what I want to do?
I've always wanted to be in advertising. And I think for me, it was like, interning with some of those places just made me, it was actually hard to go back to university sometimes after summers, because I'm just like, that's what I want to be doing, not this. This degree really has got nothing to do with my future. The one switch I did have was when I first started, I actually wanted to be an art director. Because I used to draw and I like art. So I actually wanted to be an art director versus a copywriter. And it was a CD. It was that same CD gave me my first job that, kind of just convinced me. And he was great. He's an amazing writer. I loved his style. And he was the one that kind of convinced me to make the switch. I was at first kind of like, oh, okay, fine. And then he kept telling me about, no, the power of the word, do it. and I eventually did that. And I didn't look back.
Amazing. So you really had someone there that advocated for you, that really took you under their wing. Sounds like he was, or they were your, essentially your mentor, which always helpful when you're trying to grow in your career. And that, in terms of, mentorship, that leads quite nicely onto our final question, which is, what's the best career advice you've ever been given?
Trying your best just to get in the door and just surround yourself by reality, like by the actual industry as soon as possible. So, obviously now there's a lot of great ad schools out there, but yeah, getting into sort of real life and getting into real agencies and just seeing how they work and being up against, real people, real deadlines, real briefs, and just kind of feeding off of all of that, just being as much of a sponge as you can. Well, I think another thing I'd say is just, again, not to give up. But there was one point where I was in London, coming back to Scotland after being told by one or two big agencies just that, my book was trash and basically I should maybe think about going back to ad school. And I was like, what? I was like, I've been working in agencies, but all right, whatever. And I think it was after, a terrible interview like that I just decided just to kind of do it myself. And that's when I kind of jumped out of advertising for a bit and started a magazine. I had the ability, had the creativity, had the passion, knew that could pull in lots of cool and interesting people and do something amazing, and just did it. And that's probably what got me to New York, having that physical magazine to be like, look, I made this. It doesn't have to be advertising. If you're passionate about something else, creative, as long as it's creative, do it, make it. And that's what you can show to get in the door,
I really love that piece of advice of do it yourself. That kind of DIY approach is to help give yourself a really interesting portfolio that will help you stand out against all the other people who are applying to the same positions, who went to very similar ad schools or design schools, who all worked on the same projects. I mean, the fact that you dealt with rejection in such a great way. Okay, I've been rejected. Okay, what am I going to do next? I'm going to create something that will show off my skill set and my creativity to then help me get myself another job. And it so happens led you to New York. And then I think you also have worked in LA and, now you're in Amsterdam. So you're the perfect example of the amazing, I guess, career path that you can have if you put a bit more effort and if you just maybe think outside the box a bit with your portfolio and turn any kind of rejection, actually what you said, which is just don't give up, just keep going and turn every kind of challenge into an opportunity. But I mean, I could talk about this for hours, but we've actually come to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for being a guest.
Of course, thank you very much. Hope it helps someone out there, or inspires, or pushes forward in some way.
I'm sure this is definitely going to help someone and resonate with a lot of people. So thank you, Iain, and until next time, take care. Bye.
Bye.